Greetings all, and welcome to the Soul Path Collective. My name is Yeshua. I'm your host. I am I'm whatever you want me to be, honestly. I like to start this podcast with a prayer. By the way of eternal source I am, by the truth of eternal source I stand, by the power of eternal source I fly, and by the way of eternal source go I. By the grace of eternal source, I now sanctify and renew this gathering and decree this gathering in beings as under the divine protectorate of the eternal life original founders races. In the name of eternal source consciousness field and first eternal life creation. Taisha and Tadoe, Taisha and Tadoe, Taisha and Tadoe. Spoken as it is stated, and so it is done. How is everybody? I know we have a lot of new listeners tuning in for the first time. I just wanted to welcome you to the tribe and to the family. Today's podcast topic is very, very interesting, and one that I'm deeply passionate about. We're going to be talking about who the Afro-Indigenous tribes are, where they came from. For those of you who don't know about the fall of Tara and the suppressed blueprint of humanity, we're also going to be talking a little bit about DNA activation as well and how all of this correlates and ties into each other. But yeah, I'm super sorry about the delay. The last podcast episode I did, I think, was 3 weeks ago. And I got, not sick, but my sinuses just got crazy. Because right now I'm just pumping my body with so much light during DNA activation. And I had to go see my family in the States, and I right now I live in the south of Brazil, so coming from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere like that and doing that frequently can be hard on your body if you don't take preparations, and I didn't, and my family and I ended up with the sniffles over holiday break, and I didn't have it in me at that time to continue, but this episode, we're going to go far beyond anything that you were ever taught. In church, schools, mainstream history, we are unearthing a story that has been buried beneath colonization, buried beneath religion, buried beneath academic censorship, and deliberate manipulation of the planetary grids. This story in particular, we're going to talk about where Afro-Indigenous people come from, but also why the history and the culture were targeted and almost systemically erased. Obviously, we're here talking about it now. But before we begin, I just want to acknowledge everyone who is tuning in, especially those who are hearing this type of information for the first time. Take a moment, take a breath, and know that nothing here is designed to divide or condemn. We are not here to villainize any group. We are here to trace the origins of humanity and the multidimensional evolution of our DNA and the cosmic events that led to the fragmentation of races on Earth. The truths we're going to explore today are truths you can feel in your body. They are truths your ancestors have whispered, and they are truths that are encoded inside of your DNA. And once you hear them, they activate something inside of you that's very, very ancient. This isn't just history, this is about remembrance. And to everyone listening from various backgrounds, Black, white, and Indigenous, Latino, Asian, mixed, you are welcome in this space. What we talk about today concerns all of humanity because every race on Earth is a puzzle piece of a much larger cosmic story. Understanding the Afro-Indigenous experience not to diminish anybody else's lineage. Instead, it completes the missing chapters that were intentionally removed to keep humanity asleep. So settle in, get comfortable, and prepare to hear the true story of Earth's people and the fall of Tara and the manipulation of human DNA. I love talking about this stuff. And the cosmic forces that have shaped our reality for the past hundreds of thousands of years. So to understand race, you need to first understand consciousness. To understand humanity, you must first understand DNA. And to understand the suppression of certain groups, you must understand why their DNA mattered so much. Because human DNA was never meant to be merely biological. In the original template, DNA operated as a frequency ladder, a 12-strand multi-dimensional architecture that allowed humans to exist as both physical and interdimensional beings. These strands are not physical threads, but harmonic bands of sound, light, and scalar energy that correspond to different layers of consciousness. When scientists mapped the genome and discovered that only 3% codes for proteins, they assumed that the rest was just non-functional. They called it junk DNA, not because it was useless, but because our current technology cannot read multi-dimensional coding, at least not yet. You cannot measure soul memory with a microscope. You cannot map cosmic consciousness with chemical tests. The 97% that was dismissed is actually where the higher functions of humanity reside. So to break it down more deeply, strand 1 governs the physical body, your immune system, instincts, survival responses. Strand 2 governs emotional processing. We call this your D2 body, your emotional body, the subconscious, and your inherited trauma patterns. Strand 3 houses the mental body, higher logic, imagination, and the ability to synthesize physical and metaphysical information. Strand 4 is the astral awareness, dreams, psychic impressions, the ability to synthesize energetic fields. Strand 4 contains soul memory, past lives, karmic patterns, and ancestral agreements. Strand 6 activates your avatar identity, and this is the part of your consciousness that exists beyond Earth's reincarnation cycles. Strands 7 through 9 correspond to oversoul levels, manifestation, timeline navigation, telepathy, and profound energetic influence. But if that's too much for you, if that's going over your head, I get it. You think this kind of stuff only exists in Harry Potter and Star Wars, but I just gotta say, where do you think they get it from? And strands 10 through 12 are the avatar inner Christos self, unity consciousness, unconditional love, and the ability to embody source energy while incarnated. When all 12 strands are active, humans have abilities that today would be called godlike: telepathy, instantaneous healing, astral travel, multidimensional awareness, direct communication with planetary grids, and full memory of the soul's journey. Not only were these strands deactivated, the groups who still carried strong remnants of them became targets. The Afro-Indigenous races were among the strongest carriers of the original 12-strand template. This is why their suppression is not just historical. This was a strategic chess move. Because when you disconnect a people from their DNA, you disconnect them from their power. All right? We're going to talk about the fall of Tara. And for those of you who don't know what that is, before Earth existed in its current form, humanity lived on a planet called Tara, which is a higher dimensional world vibrationally aligned with 5th dimensional and 6th dimensional frequency bands. Tara was a lush, advanced, and interconnected. Humanity lived with full DNA activation in harmony with other star races, with knowledge of energy, manifestation, and cosmic law. But then Tara fell. And the fall wasn't just a geological event. It was a collapse in frequency triggered by interference from fallen collectives. The Wesadek factions, you heard me talk about that in the post, fallen Anunnaki groups, draconian races, and Metatronic shadow beings. These invader groups attempted to hijack Tara's grid system, leading to a catastrophic chain reaction within the planetary shields. The dimensional collapse shattered Tara into several fragments. one of which descended into third density and eventually became Earth. This event is echoed in myths across cultures: the war in heaven, the fall of the angels, Atlantis, destruction, and the Bible, the fall from Eden. When Tara fell, the human soul groups incarnated on her were forced to let me repeat that. When Tara fell, human soul groups that incarnated here were forced into lower density bodies. Our DNA collapsed from 12 strands to 3 to 4 active strands. Memory fragmented, higher senses shut down, lifespans were shortened, and with the descent into 3D, humanity entered a long cycle of amnesia. But, and this is crucial, not all soul groups fell equally. Some retained more of the original coding, some held stronger melanin-based frequency conduction, some survived the fall with their intuitive gifts, grid-keeping abilities, and ancestral records still intact. These beings became the Afro-Indigenous peoples of Earth, the carriers of the old world, the older physics, and the pre-fall consciousness. This is where the story of their suppression truly begins. So, who are the Afro-Indigenous people really? The Afro-Indigenous people across Africa, the Americas, Australia, the Caribbean, and the Pacific are not descendants of primitive tribes. They are descendants of pre-cataclysmic, multi-dimensional civilizations that existed long before Europe even had architecture. All right? These groups trace back to the Laran Syrian founders, the beings responsible for carrying the original human template across the galaxies. Their bodies were designed to hold strong melanin frequency, melanin being a natural conductor of light, sound, and electromagnetic energy in high dimensions. Melanin is not simply a biological pigment, it is a form of biological dark matter, a conduit for interdimensional communication. This is why Afro-Indigenous people often show heightened intuition, powerful emotional intelligence, strong natural healing abilities, ancestral communication, dream sensitivity, prophetic insight, rhythmic and musical genius, and resilience beyond physical explanation. Their DNA, our DNA, holds a memory not just of Earth, but of Tara, Lyra, Sirius, and countless other star nations that contributed to humanity's genetic tapestry. Across the globe, wherever Afro-Indigenous civilizations existed, you'll find pyramids aligned to star systems, megalithic structures defying modern engineering, oral histories describing star beings and portals, advanced mathematics and astronomy knowledge. I have a hard time saying that word sometimes. Plant medicine, systems that read like biochemistry textbooks, sacred geometry embedded in clothing, skin markings, and architecture. These cultures were not developing these systems independently. They were remembering. They were carrying the echoes of Tara. And because their DNA contained the closest match to the original 12-strand coding, they were uniquely capable of activating Earth's energy grids, opening stargates, communicating with higher realms, stabilizing planetary frequency, and maintaining harmony between human and cosmic law. These roles made them indispensable to Earth, but dangerous to invader races. Okay? So why did these groups have to be erased? Well, they needed to control Earth. Invader races needed to control Earth's grids. And to control the grids, they needed to control the grid keepers. And the grid keepers were the Afro-Indigenous peoples. Their spiritual technology was too advanced, their memory too deep, their coding too powerful, their connection to source too strong, their telepathy too clear, their intuitive senses too sharp, okay? You can't enslave a population that can see through manipulation. Basically, you can't finesse someone who can see through bullshit. And that's what we're so good at. You can't deceive a people who can read energy. You can't dominate groups of people who can open motherfucking portals and speak to ancestors and navigate timelines and heal themselves. So the strategy became simple. Erase the people who remember. This is why colonization needed to target melanated civilizations first. I don't know if you guys have ever wondered. I remember being a kid and hearing about like Jim Crow and slavery and like what Portuguese did to like, you know, the indigenous peoples in Brazil and black people in the Americas and Australia. And I'm like, why? My whole life, I was like, why are we always being targeted? Like, why is it always us? Like, why all the hatred? You know what I mean? I'm just like, what did we do? Like, we didn't enslave anybody. We're not like terrorizing. We're not like taxing you. Like, why do you hate us so much? And when I came across this knowledge, y'all, I was like in tears. I was seeing like parts and pieces of my past life, who I was, not as a human, but in my multidimensional form. And I was like, holy shit, this makes so much sense. So this is why colonization targeted melanated civilizations first. This is why their temples were destroyed, why their languages were outlawed, and this is why their spiritual systems were demonized. I can't tell you not to disrespect any Christians, but anytime any kind of multidimensional science or drumming or anything outside of the Bible is discussed, talked about, and explored as a possibility, it's called demonic. Where do you think that started? Where do you think that started? Think deeper. This is why their lineages were scattered. This is why their children were taken. And this is why their history was rewritten. This is why their kingdoms from Mali to Olmec to Congo were removed from textbooks entirely. The goal was not just physical domination. It was metaphysical domination. By dismantling Afro-Indigenous memory, invader groups could hijack Earth's grids, humanity's belief systems, planetary timelines, reincarnation cycles, religious structures, and political systems. What happens historically as colonization was spiritually a war on DNA. All right? Now, this next part, you might feel some kind of way about it, but I'm going to talk about why white people are not the enemy for a second. Now, this is where we bring nuance and healing. White people were not created to be villains. They were engineered through a series of density shifts and environmental adaptations and genetic adjustments made after Atlantis to create a lineage that could hold the polarity of separation. Their lower melanin levels made them more physically vulnerable to harsh climates, less able to absorb solar photonic information, easier to influence on an emotional level, and more susceptible to fear-based programming. But none of this means they are evil. In fact, many white souls incarnated specifically to dissolve karmic loops and to bring balance, to help repair the damage done by the forces that manipulated their ancestors. Invader races hijacked white populations not because they were superior, but because they were controllable. They used them as soldiers, colonizers, and missionaries, and frontline agents in their planetary control strategy. But today, many white individuals are also awakening, breaking programming, and taking responsibility for being the ones to heal those ancestral wounds. The real enemy is not a race, it is a strategy created by fallen factions who needed to divide humanity to stay in control. Okay? So let's identify who the fallen groups actually are. You say, well, Yeshua, you know, who are these people then? You know, like, who are these beings, these demons, whatever, right? And we're going to be talking about this throughout the duration, I think, of this whole podcast, but I don't want you guys to focus on that. I want you to focus on healing, on DNA activation, and remembering who you are, because once you remember, no one can ever fuck with or touch your power ever again. Not you, not your children, not your children's children's. The star seeds and the indigo children are here. The 144,000 have arrived, and we are not backing down. We are here. We are going to reset the grids, and we are going to heal all this distortion, all this trauma, and these timelines. So let's identify the forces behind the curtain. We're going to talk about the Enlilites, okay? Fallen Anunnaki Enlilites. So these are authoritarian beings obsessed with obedience, hierarchy, domination. Their influence is embedded in Abrahamic religion. Obey God or you're going to burn in hell. Obey me. I am the Father. I am this. Patriarchal systems, law, punishment frameworks, and the angry father God archetype comes from the fallen Anunnaki Enlilites. Then there are the Draconians. These are the most famous because I think sometimes when people see demons, they actually most likely are either seeing a phantom group or a Draco. And in a lot of religious books, people confuse Draconians with demons, but they're actually off-world beings. They have their own planet, they have their own star system in the Alpha Draconis. There's a movie called Jupiter Ascending with Channing Tatum, where you actually get to see there's a Draconian in that movie if you watch it all the way through. And they've got the red capes and everything. And it's like Hollywood puts this, it's so funny because Hollywood puts all the answers right in front of you. It's just you think it's fiction, and that's the trick. That's where they get you to consent, because they do show you the truth, but you just write it off. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's whatever. But that's the gist, right? So Draconians are reptilian, militaristic, empire-building beings who feed on fear and emotional energy called loosh. They engineered wars, colonization, racism, and human suffering to maintain a constant food source, okay? Then there are phantom Metatronic groups, entities that are disconnected from source. They exist in what are called collapsed timelines. They need to hijack living systems in order to survive. Their architecture is based on inversion, turning unity into division, love into fear, and truth into confusion. These groups infiltrated human society through priesthoods, royal families, government institutions, secret societies, military empires, and religious doctrines. They turned humanity's spiritual amnesia into a weapon, and they used racism as a frequency tool to fracture human unity, suppress awakening codes, create trauma loops, and prevent DNA activation, and to stop the rise of Christos consciousness. Racism is not natural, it is engineered, all right? So why do the Afro-Americans feel so different? Because I've always wondered that too. They're like, yeah, man, well, we from Africa. I'm like, really? Have y'all actually like been to all the parts of Africa? Like, have you seen their features and ours? Like they look a little different. I'm not saying that we don't come from there, but even as a small child, I'm just like, we look so different. I'm like, well, that's because we're mixed and we've got colonizer blood. I'm like, well, yeah, kind of true, but even still, Afro-Americans today carry some of the strongest remnants of the original Grid Keeper DNA, right? They're descendants of multiple migrations, West African empires, Afro-Indigenous American tribes, Moors, Olmecs, Black Seminoles, Caribbean nations, and countless lineages erased from official history. And this is why Afro-Americans carry deep spiritual intuition. It's very psychic sensitivity, prophetic dreams, strong connection to ancestors, resilience under oppression, and an emotional intelligence that defies explanation, and a sense of I'm bigger than what society thinks I am. And their gifts were never lost, they were only suppressed. And the spiritual pressure that they feel is a weight of two worlds, the trauma of earth and the memory of Tara. All right? I don't know if you guys can see me with this light in this room. Hang on, let me try to get some more light for you guys in my face, because I want you to be able to see me. All right, that should be better. Sorry about that. But this is why Afro-American culture births global movements: music, fashion, language, resistance, creativity, because creativity is a symptom of activated DNA expressing itself. They are not a minority, they are key. All right? And so one thing that we're going to focus on a lot is the return to the DNA template. We're now living in a time that the ancestors would often speak about. Solar cycles are increasing, Earth's grids are fixing themselves, and they're repairing, and we're doing a lot of the grid work as well. Timeline wars are ending, and the dormant strands of DNA, especially in Afro-Indigenous descendants, are beginning to respond to those new frequencies. So as DNA continues to awaken, intuition sharpens, ancestral memory returns, spiritual gifts activate, trauma dissolves, and unity consciousness rises. It's not just about personal awakening. This is a planetary resurrection. Earth is remembering Tara, and the people who carry Tara's codes are remembering themselves. So this episode is not about division, it's about illumination. Every race carries a piece of the cosmic puzzle. Every lineage plays a role in Earth's evolution. But the Afro-Indigenous story has been erased the most, and it is the story humanity needs the most to awaken. Because when you remember your origin, you cannot be controlled. And when you remember your purpose, you cannot be silenced. Right? And when you start activating your DNA, you become unfuckwithable. You know? That's just it. But I appreciate you guys so much for being here. I love this stuff, man. And I know there's gonna come a time soon where I'm just doing this like all the freaking time. I wanted to do this podcast episode sooner, but I was having a really hard time just finding time because there's just so much information. The chelotonic sciences and CDT, there's just so much. There's so much to unpack. This is the wisdom that we have waited lifetimes for. And I know, some of you, it might not resonate, and that's okay. It might not resonate because your soul or your oversoul is not ready for that part of you to activate just yet. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. That's totally fine. If you want to stick to what you know and what you believe in, there's no shame in that. We're just telling you where the distortions are and where the lies are, right? I personally can't embrace any book or any religion that has systemically had a history of repressing not just women, but the divine feminine at all. Never have, never will. And you can challenge me on that in the comment section. I'm not going to respond. Maybe on Instagram and TikTok, but I don't engage with that. If you have genuine questions and you're a genuine truth seeker, look within and you will find it. Next year, I'm going to be rolling out the Soul Path Collective, which is a DNA activation tribe. It's taken a lot of work, and I'm getting ready to release my first book on this subject matter called the Acoustic Bible. When that comes out, there's going to be links in the description. You guys can order it, give it as a gift to someone you know who might be a star seed or like an indigo child. We'll talk about who the star seeds are and who the indigo children are in the next episode. If you don't know what that means or who those people are, we are here. We are free. We are free. We are free. Taisha and Tadoe, thank you for tuning in to today's podcast episode. If you like this video, please like it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. The more people we get tuning into these podcasts, the more we're able to grow, and the more we can give back, and the more we can collectively heal these wounds and remember, not to ascend, but to remember. You are already perfect. You are already divine. Taisha and Tadoe. Until next time, y'all. Have a blessed week. Peace.